Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Asia PropTech Beyond 2022 Summit. Now, today's topic is Women Trailblazers in PropTech, which I'm obviously honoured to be moderating. We did one last year, which was a great success, but we've got a different panel this year. And we'll be hearing from 4 women trailblazers who I hugely admire in our ever-changing PropTech space. Now, they're going to be sharing with us their journeys, successes, and challenges of retention and hiring, which I'm sure whoever is watching or listening to this, that you've probably faced yourself, and also sort of trends that which they've seen in our space and what to expect in the future. So without further ado, let's welcome our panel. So we have Grace Liu, who is Head of APAC at OpenSpace AI. We have Jeanne Casey, Global Head of PropTech and Innovation at Nuveen. We have Allison Lloyds, Global Head of Investor Relations and Capital Development at Willow. And we have Huibin, founder at Fohlio Inc. And obviously, I want to give a little shout out to Paul Chen for obviously kindly inviting all of us to speak. We meant to record it last week and we had to do a little last minute rejig, and he made it work. So, and obviously all the ladies did as well. So thank you for that. And then those who don't know me, my name's Louisa Dickins. I'm founder of LMRE. So what we do, we recruit into this built environment and innovation sector across technical and non-technical roles. So we could recruit for a contact business like OpenSpace. We could recruit for, say, a Fohlio. It could be a wide score, but also help the VCs hire internally for their portfolios. And then we've seen a massive growth area, the likes of GL Technologies, Blackstone across the data analytics and innovation space. So we're kept very busy, but all of this isn't possible without having role models and leaders in the space. And what I've seen is the importance of having diversity in a team, especially for people looking more sort of junior level. Is what can they sort of look up to be? So that's what we're going to be talking about today. So I'm going to stop babbling on, and I'd love to sort of get started, and we can hear from obviously the superwoman which we have as our guest. So who shall we start with? Grace, why don't we start with you? Could you share, and we'll do this one by one, share the audience your sort of journey to PropTech as well, because I think some of you guys come from banking, some come from real estate and so forth, but it varies. So if you could share, that'd be fabulous.
Sounds good. Thank you. So when talking about PropTech, usually people got either coming from the industry side or they're coming from the tech side. And I was coming from the industry side. But for OpenSpace, I have been in the real estate, private equity, and the advisory space for more than a decade. And I was amazed along the way how technology is reshaping the industry. And that's why I also got into VC and angel investment for a couple of years. And that's how I got to know OpenSpace, my current company. So I was intrigued by the amazing leadership team, the product, and the problem that we're solving in the industry. And that's why I decided to join full-time after that.
Amazing. Thank you for that. And I guess let's go on to Allison next. So obviously you came from doing quite a few years at Seabury, working your way up through the ropes. Share with the audience, I guess, a bit more about you and your role at Willow.
Yeah, well, great to be here with all of you, and thanks, Paul and Louisa. Yes, as you mentioned, I was with CBRE in New York, 200 Park, also in London, working in their corporate portfolio group where we would optimize real estate holdings. It was a really interesting role. And Louisa, you know that I then also took a 10-year detour into, oddly, psychology and neuroscience, which was really fascinating. And at Willow, I think I'm combining both. Heading up investor relations, so I'm working closely with our existing investor base, which is a fantastic group, a global group, and also going out into the capital fundraising space to continue to work to fund the company, so we can do our great work with digital twins, which I will explain a little bit more later. And it's been fantastic. So I'm happy to be here with all of you, and we'll talk a little bit more, I guess, about the nitty-gritty of the digital twin space as we go.
Awesome, thanks for that. I think a couple of years ago, people had no idea what digital twin was. I've got a basic understanding, so I'm looking forward to you elaborating that in a little bit more. Now, Huibin, talk us through, I guess, your journey as well, and obviously Fohlio.
Sure, thanks for having me here. So before starting Fohlio, I was their vice president at JP Morgan. as well as like had some experience in other investment banks, cross asset class trading desks to build very bespoke cross trading desks like trading systems. And then a few years ago, I was renovating my house, and I realized that the process of like collecting building material information and getting the bids from different suppliers and coordinating with contractors is a very manual and hairy process. So I interviewed an architect who was working on some larger commercial projects in Manhattan, and it turned out that things are actually a lot more difficult in a larger commercial scale. So I borrowed some of the trading system concept from my experience with Bloomberg and Goldman Sachs, etc., and come up with a unique concept that would help organization with network of locations. So think about hotel franchise or churches or even like daycare centers or fast food restaurants. They need to make sure that their brand standards, essentially what materials can be procured, are enforced across different locations. And that brand standards keep evolving. It's very hard to make sure that everybody have the right data and also purchase at the good price without long lead time to make sure that the project open on time. So essentially, we help those locations expand efficiently by reducing the procurement costs and the lead time, especially during the current financial and also like supply chain crisis. This is very needed, a pain point to be addressed.
Yeah, another pain point you obviously mentioned is everyone having the right data, which I think everyone on this call probably struggles with from their business. Jeanne, what about you last? Obviously, definitely not least. Talk us, tell the audience a little bit more about you and your role at Nuveen.
Absolutely. I love how everyone's coming at the prop tech industry from a very different lens and background. And so excited to add a little bit of a different route to prop tech myself as well. But first, a little bit about Nuveen. I'm the head of prop tech and innovation globally. We are one of the largest real estate owners in the world and a large and growing presence in APAC as well. Globally, we manage around a little over 150 billion in USD of real estate around the world. So that makes us number 4 or 5 largest real estate investment manager in the world on any given year. I made my way to prop tech through venture capital. And so I spent over a decade in different venture capital roles throughout my career, not always focused on prop tech, but over the last 5 or so years, very focused on prop tech, and really decided to commit and focus the rest of my career on the space because I'm so excited about where it's going. I've always been focused on investing in industries that are going through pretty rapid digital transformation. So I spent some time a little over a decade ago focused on fintech and investing Morgan Stanley's balance sheet money into startups that were transforming or disrupting traditional business lines that they were in. Thought that was a really interesting way to learn more about the future of financial services, and then took that and have kind of had a winding path to finally find myself in some very similar themes and throughout the global real estate industry. And I see prop tech kind of unfolding a lot like the last decade. We've seen just massive transformation in financial services and the way large companies use technology, and I'm excited to see real estate begin to embrace those trends like other industries have.
Absolutely, thank you for that. I think what we're going to be discussing later is why would you join this industry? Like, what are the exciting sort of career pathways? And you're all in different roles in each of your businesses, so we'll talk about that in a bit later. We then obviously went into a bit about the Fohlio product, but I really want to give Allison and Grace just a moment to obviously explain what your businesses do as well for the audience. So Allison, if you want to go first, and then obviously Grace, you can tell us a little bit more about OpenSpace too.
Sure, for sure. And it's so nice to hear everybody's, like you said, different angles here. So Lou, you obviously got the lowdown over the summer about digital twins, but I'm not sure if everyone listening really knows about digital twins. They're not new. They've been around for decades, but they were actually new to me when I started with Willow. And digital twins provide this really interesting way to kind of store, organize, and access data. So many of our assets, whether it's a building or a mine or a railroad or a stadium, they're giving off data. And a lot of, times in the past, that data was buried in these very proprietary, inaccessible systems. So if you're an owner, you actually couldn't access, information that was vital. So in the age of ESG, security, a digital twin, if you create your building with a digital twin, you're able to, make data-led decisions. So we always say at Willow, kind of our technology allows you to see better. It allows you to kind of be in touch with a single source of truth. So, obviously I could go on, and you all can read about Willow and about digital twins if you want to learn more, but I have found it actually very fascinating and empowering to have this tool. And our CEO once told a story that, a beautiful skyscraper was built, and on the handover, they said, well, here are the plans rolled up in a cardboard box. So if you need them, here you go. I mean, if there's a flood, if the property manager leaves, things become inaccessible versus having everything on a screen. So that's kind of what a digital twin does. And I think it's pretty cool.
Agreed. Right. Grace, talk us through a bit more about OpenSpace AI as well. And then I really want to hear from all of you about basically how you're going about sort of growing your businesses as you're doing this. I think each of you are doing it globally. But Grace, if you could share a bit more, that'd be fab.
Yeah, sounds good. Thank you. So OpenSpace is a leader at the reality capture space. We provide 360-degree photo documentation and automatically progress tracking to the construction industry, which kind of helps to drive a new way of collaboration and provide new data insights. So currently we have customers over, I think last time the number is like 70 countries, but it might be like more now. And our customer capture more than, I think, 7-8 billion data points across many different projects across the world. Yeah, so this is kind of what OpenSpace do. Yeah, and we in APAC we grow quite rapidly over the past 1 or 2 years.
Awesome. Well, this is kind of very timely for our next question, which is all about, obviously, it's about growth. Grace, obviously mentioned your business growing globally. I know Willow's done the same. Fohlio is also hiring at pace, and Jeanne, I know you've been building out your team as well. But for you, I'd love to hear about from each of you, like personal experiences on why were you guys all attracted, and what have you experienced to work in terms of keeping you all, I guess, developing your skills, keeping you happy, I think, and being sort of engaged. What sort of, I guess, do you look for culture? Because we've just I think this is coming out around the 1st or 2nd week of September, but at LMRE we partnered with Fifthful to do a salary survey, but it wasn't just about base salaries. It was about why would someone join a business, and a lot of it came down to culture. It was more about the new EVP, especially for millennials and Gen Zs, and it was about different culture. It was about a healthy building. Obviously, Allison mentioned about the ESG side over there. It was about sort of workplace culture, amenities. There's so much more, but a lot of it also was good training and development and communication within the wider business, and that goes down to open plan workplaces and so much more. But for you, let's go through each of you. What's made you happy? What's helped you grow your team and grow your own career? Jeanne, do you want to? I guess you've done a huge amount of that. Also been involved in different portfolios in your time at Metapod. What do you think sort of worked for you personally, or what you've seen?
Yeah, I've always just been fundamentally attracted to the best people I could work with. And so I think early in my career, I defined that as the smartest and the most intense. And over the years, I've learned that there's more than just that as filtering criteria. And I've looked for more diverse teams, more representation at the leadership level, firms and cultures that walk the walk and not just talk the talk. And to be very candid, I didn't know if I wanted to leave the venture capital industry and move to a large real estate corporate. I wasn't sure if that was the right fit. The reason I actually took the first interview was because I saw this role reported to 2 women. not one, but two. And I had never worked directly for a woman in my entire career. And so that was not the reason I took the role, but it was really appealing, and it kind of made me stop and think, oh, I've never worked for a woman, and I am a woman. And so I got to know them, realized, got to know the Nuveen Real Estate Global leadership team throughout my interview process, and just getting to know the firm, was really impressed, and really realized that there was a lot of diversity of representation at the most senior ranks. And that was really impressive and reflective of the culture that I've gotten to know as quite inclusive, quite proactive in not only like talking the talk and being, advocating for change and great things in the world, but actually, practicing what they preach out loud too.
Awesome. I'd love to hear a bit more about maybe some initiatives you've seen work in the industry in a bit, but why don't we go on to Grace about your sort of experience as well?
Yeah. At OpenSpace, we really appreciate different skill sets and different background of people, and we believe that contribute to innovative solutions as well as good customer services. So that's why we have been hiring a pretty diverse background of people. For example, in our company at the VP level, we have more female executives than male executives, which is quite unique in the tech space. And in APAC, we also hire from many different countries, as Louisa, you might know, because we use your service quite a bit. So we also attract people by having a great company culture, a very supportive management team, as well as we continue providing, continuing education and training program to our people. And of course, we also pay people well and care about their well-beings. And I think most importantly, we attract a group of people that share the same vision and passion for solving the industry problems.
Yeah. And what about, wait, I'll go, Huibin, I'd love to hear from you, and then Allison, and then something which no one's mentioned yet is obviously about the values, and that's what values which a business obviously embraces as well, and should be, I guess every sort of team should be living by them. But Huibin, I'd love to hear from you more about what you've seen work as well, because obviously coming from banking as well. Is there any, why did you, I guess, make the move, and what kept you, I guess, in banking for so long, and how, when you're growing your team now, how do you go about, I guess, hiring a diverse workforce as well?
Sure. I really appreciate my management experience in the banking days. I still carry some of the culture back from Goldman Sachs, in the sense that when I was hiring people, I intentionally look for individuals have curiosity, and then with the drive to sometimes you have to punch through the wall, especially as a startup, right? You have to make a name for yourself and be very scrappy to come up with solutions with the limited resource you have. In the early few years of starting Fohlio, I'm a mom, with two kids. I actually gave birth to my second child 5 years ago, and it kind of bootstrapped the business for the first few years until a year ago, we raised our seed round, and we're on the track to raise our Series A round in a few months. So it has not been really easy, and I was able to really leverage some of the offshore talents. So our team are very organically actually, diversify and very global across different continents. And now as the company scale, we are attracting a lot more larger clients, our product become more sophisticated, and also our team has grown rapidly. So I have been in the process of hiring a lot more senior experienced executive. And that's why I leveraged the service from LMRE. I'm really happy with your team's work with us. And I noticed that hiring senior executives is really completely different ballgame from hiring people, because they have seen a lot and they know what they're looking for. And it's very, very calibrated dating process. And in the sense that, I have learned my lesson. I have got some rejections, and that was pretty painful. I have to be, very, honest with you on that. But I kind of in that process, I learned, okay, what's a good fit for us, for our stage of growth? And then what kind of quality we have to articulate to attract those talents? Like Grace said, the impact of the business, the culture, what kind of individuals will bring in a company, and what type of growth opportunities they will experience both from a mental level as well as the financial future. And then the impact they're gonna bring to the company and why their unique skill sets and mentality is a good fit for us. And also introduce them to the team, like, other executives, and make sure they're comfortable with what they're gonna work with. So it's a very, interesting process. I personally learned a lot in this process in terms of, okay, I have made mistakes as well. What would be a good fit, how we onboard those talents, make sure that they can really, really, reach their full potential and become successful in my organization. And it's a very important skill set as a founder that I continue to develop. And also as a company as a whole, what kind of structure and culture I need to build to continue to grow this tree and make it flourish and everybody feel fulfilled working in my company.
I'm loving all these points you're making and the onboarding, especially since us coming out of COVID, where I think obviously all your businesses have grown. I know, Jeanne, you moved roles during COVID as well, and having that onboarding process when we were all working remotely, it's so key. And just how do you develop people after that, making sure they feel welcome, they're part of the team. And it's really difficult. It's so difficult. Allison, what about you? What's worked for Willow, but also any comparisons you can draw from obviously the green machine of CBRE in terms of development and hiring and
Yeah, the green machine. I like that, especially when you're at 200 Park, which I don't know if you guys know, but 200 Park is the MetLife building in New York City, and it's really iconic, and it's where CBRE, we had many floors. And back in the day, I graduated from Columbia undergrad, and I started there as an analyst. And I remember it really clearly. We were all in these, little cubicles, toiling away. And it was almost like a badge of honor, very much, I'm sure, like you guys experienced that were in banking, where you would, work 14, 16-hour days. And it was kind of training ground. And I did that for a decade. I traveled. There was, we had blueberries. Remember the wheel? You would click, click, click in the elevator. But we weren't really flexible, even though we had those blueberries. Blackberries. I actually found mine the other day, and I thought I should bronze it and put it as like a relic. But anyways, the point of this story is I met my husband, who was at Bear Stearns at the time, right next door to 200 Park. And we kind of looked at each other and realized if we were going to have a family, someone was going to have to potentially take a step back from those, 14-hour days. So that's when I went back to become a psychologist, not just because of the hours, it interested me. And at the time, CBRE didn't seem friendly to being able to have a child and have a newborn and be able to take care of that child. So a decade later, I saw the proliferation of tech, the flexibility from the pandemic, almost allowing women to come back into a space that was traditionally more of a 5-day-a-week, 14-hour day space. I now roll on and off at Willow because we work across Australia, Seattle, Dallas, New York. So I'm kind of always on, which I think is, of course, you have to be careful with boundaries, but I can be at the playground and take a call. And that's usually okay. So it allows me to be really nimble as a woman. And I think that has been for me really rewarding. And a great thing about Willow is we run really fast. We're a startup. So if you are getting your work done and you're, pushing yourself and you're going beyond, it doesn't really matter if maybe you're doing that, on your own hours. So that for me has made this space possible. And one reason I was able to re-enter, more of a real estate focused flow. So it's been great, to be honest. It can be, of course, draining because you wear a lot of hats, I think, as a mom and a wife and an executive. But for me, I love, my daughter is 8 and my son is 5. And I love when my daughter sees me working. I think it's empowering for her, for this generation to see, you can drop them off at school and you can also lead a team that is comprised mainly of men. So it's been great.
Thank you so much for that. And in terms of initiatives that I'm next week at Built Worlds. It's, I don't know if maybe Grace, someone OpenSpace might be going. It's obviously focuses more on the content community. And I'm speaking on the Women Contact panel, and I've just been taking notes of for everything you have all been saying that obviously works for you as well. What about other initiatives that you found helpful to for all of you to sort of grow and develop in your careers? You've obviously mentioned about some businesses being more flexible. That's obviously more sort of internal operational structural things. Is it about role models? Is it, is it sort of more mentorship? Is it communities? Is it more sort of forums, get-togethers? I don't know, but I'd love to hear from each of you what's worked. And Jeanne, do you want to maybe have a go at answering that?
Sure, and I'll give two answers that I think are what has in combination made me or have been most impactful in my career. The first is more formal, and that is during the interview process, and Nuveen's really focused on this and actually mandates, there's all these metrics around diversity of representation of candidate slates that we're looking at to fill a position, and then also diversity on the other side of interview panels. And I think personally, having gone through the process, a little over a year ago, that was really impactful in just getting to know the company from a diverse set of perspectives, and also help demonstrate again that like walking the walk versus talking the talk. And then the other part that has been equally, I think, helpful in my own professional journey has been in forming friendships, honestly, with peers, and women peers especially. So I had started on an informal basis a group of women who would meet quarterly, who were focused on prop tech, fintech, and insurtech venture capital investing. And we would bring in, either a guest speaker who was a very senior woman from a firm, or just meet, on an ongoing basis to discuss, share deal flow, because that's really important in the venture capital world and kind of how you get ahead. But also just make genuine connections. And I'm still, quite good friends with a number of women I've met through those kind of informal gatherings. And they're often the first people I think of when, I have a dilemma or I'm considering, either making a move or something important in my career. It's really nice to be able to, and helpful to be able to call on a peer in addition to more like formal mentors.
Absolutely. And for everyone listening, I know Jeanne from various events and was probably one of the warmest but also funnest people to have. And I think when you go to these events, and it's changing a lot now, but being one of the few women in the room can be intimidating, can also be quite fun, but also it is really nice to have some other women about as well. So no, I completely agree with everything you said there, Jeanne. Right, who would like to go next? Huibin, do you want to sort of share what I guess you've seen work? Because if you compare banking to obviously your own business now, what have you seen to obviously work?
Well, as a startup, we definitely have a lot less resource in terms of very corporate like training. So there are few resources I was able to provide to my team members. For example, like for sales and marketing, I recently discovered Pavilion as a revenue collective, as a basically online program that also have webinars with a lot of senior sales marketing executives, like share their key initiative and experience and give like very structured trainings on how to grow a sales organization. And for my product teams, I leverage Reforge. It's a very well-known product management, engineering management training program. It also have a very active, 12,000 Slack members Slack channel that people just like share questions, experience, and different type of product development issues they're working on. And then in terms of executive, I definitely leverage some of the executive training program by different professional training services. And myself, I benefit tremendously from my investors network at a founder network. So our venture capital investor like brick and mortar, or like, Dreamers, and they have like huge founder network, and we constantly exchange notes. For example, like, Grace has been also one of my advisor, and I love chatting with her to get some, pointers in how to scale like the sales, etc. Just like, reaching out, and if you have questions, you don't know who to ask, and just ask around. And also be vulnerable. I internally would definitely encourage our team members to share not just success, but also like lesson learned from deals that we lost, and things that we're stuck with. So I think it's very important to have this open culture for people to feel comfortable with their struggles, and so that they can resonate and help each other grow.
Absolutely. Yeah, I completely agree about that open culture, open communication, learning from. I guess also there's, especially in our space of real estate technologies, the US is slightly further ahead. So the more communication we have between also different geographies, we can hopefully maybe save us some time, money, and pain from learning from what our peers have experienced, maybe in the US over in whether it's Europe or APAC. Allison, is there anything you like to build upon? You obviously mentioned about changes which you've seen and which have made you obviously a lot more flexibility in time management when you're obviously having a family, but anything else that has worked?
Yeah, one thing I think is really interesting, and I don't mean to delve into the psychological side, but I remember in my career at CBRE, thinking I always kind of wanted to fit in with the male culture, because at CBRE, we had a lot of brokers. There were just a lot of men everywhere. Of course, there were women, but it was more predominantly male. And I always wanted to kind of assimilate and fit in and just not be noticed, and just kind of not take on a male energy, but just kind of, be one of the masses. And I think as I've aged and become a mother, I think I've become more comfortable in kind of my kind of female psychology. And I do think sometimes being a woman, especially in an investor space, when you're encouraging people also to adopt technology, empathy is really important, listening skills. A lot of these things that I think women sometimes possess, I'm not saying better than men, but, psychologically, we can have those in spades. I like to deploy those. So I've become more comfortable in saying, I'm not a guy, and that's okay. And at Willow, of course, there are, quite a few men, but we also have over 30% women. Of course, it'd be great if that number grew, but there is a new initiative called Women of Willow, where globally we all come together across time zones, and we have speakers, and our schedules are cleared. So you really attend these events, and it's about having your voice heard, work-life balance. So for me, I think settling more into being comfortable with being different, and not making excuses. If I have to do something, for my children, I don't backpedal. It's just kind of what I'm going to do. And I think that the staff, understands that and welcomes it. So, it's been working for me.
Yeah, but that also comes down to it's Josh, who's your CEO founder, creating that culture for you to feel like it's okay for you to be in that position, which is awesome and great to hear. Now, Grace, what about you? I think you've obviously just come off, maybe you're still on maternity leave right now. So thank you for joining us anyway. But how have you balanced how does OpenSpace and you balance all of that and create a similar environment where women can develop, can take time off, can balance everything?
Yeah, as you mentioned, I just recently become a mom of 4. So that's a lot to take on. So I think, I really appreciate that. As I mentioned, we have a lot of female executives in our firm, and everyone is very supportive for me taking maternity leave while, as you know, we are growing so quickly everywhere, and in APAC as well. So there's a lot of things to do while if I'm stepping, away for a couple months, it's a lot. But I think all the teams are super supportive, and the executive are super supportive for me to take the time off and spend time with my newborn and family. So I really, really appreciate that. And as I mentioned, before, I didn't come from the traditional tech background. So for me, there's a huge learning curve when I joined OpenSpace like about 2 years ago. So I have to learn everything very quickly, either on the job or through reading or like training programs myself. So I think that's another thing that I really resonate with what Huibin just mentioned, that at OpenSpace, we really use a lot of tools and process to share best practices among the colleagues to make sure that everyone benefits and everyone grow and learn together. We also believe in investing people. So our company also have training programs for everyone right now, like as all the management teams, and also mentorship programs. So there's a lot of like female executive that I can use as a role model and to learn, and also communicate a lot like with other female founders or executives in the industry. So I think those all helps.
Yeah, and we've obviously spoken a lot about how I guess the good things or the environment a business can create to help women develop, help keep obviously everyone happy. I think retaining good talent, yeah, going back to what we see at LMRE, the average time someone spends in a job right now, ladies, is 18 months after the survey we've done, which is pretty shocking. Now, I'm invested in my business. I'm not going to leave, but like for general, like when you're hiring, you got to think, right, if I've got someone really good, how do I keep them? And then also, how do you keep attracting more people to your business? Now, I'm obviously conscious of time here. I love to obviously finish off with one question about which you could all give about what's the most great part or most attractive part about working in this space for people to for those listening in, a selling point. Obviously it could be obviously working in your business, but also it could be the flexibility, the changing times, the big trends and changes you've seen in terms of adoption. It's down to you, but Jeanne, maybe you can kick us off with this one.
Sure. I'd say I'm most excited and just see the future as a lot of growth in the space. And so an increasing diversity of people that are contributing to either prop tech companies, investing in prop tech companies, or in positions that are helping to make decisions around using technology within real estate firms. I'm seeing a lot more interest from the next generation of leaders. And so I'm really excited, I think, for the next 10 years plus of PropTech to see kind of leadership at the most senior ranks of, all of those constituents change over to be more tech savvy and to look more diverse than I think we'll have ever seen historically. As everyone's kind of alluded to, PropTech's at the intersection of a bunch of traditionally male dominated spaces. And so I'm really encouraged just seeing, the change over my relatively short 12-year career. In 2010, I was very consistently at, the intersection of tech and finance, and usually the only woman in the room. That's really not the case anymore. So I'm excited, and I think everyone else should be excited around those changes that I expect to continue to accelerate.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Yeah, I think when I first went to, my first event might have been one of my Beckman's Pre-Tech events. And I guess the speakers you have now on stage are so much more diverse. You should be quite like old school men talking about technology, and now it's changed. But also I think every business is a lot more conscious of who do they get to speak at these events. It's not just the founder speaking, it's not just the head, which is so good to give other people a voice. Also, personally, I really don't like speaking, so I used to do it the whole time. It wasn't because I wanted to, so now I'm very happy to give it away to the rest of the team. Who would like to go next? Allison, what about you? What does it mean to obviously what's a great thing about joining this space, being a woman in this space for you, which you'd like to share with those listening in?
Yeah, so recently I reread a book, and I'm sure many of you have read it, which is Crossing the Chasm, and it's about tech adoption. So you have the early adopters, and then you have the chasm you kind of have to jump over, and then you have the early majority, the late majority, and then the laggards that are over there. So I think when you're in this tech space, we are seeing, it's actually amazing. It's almost hard to keep up. So much flooding the market, like even on LinkedIn, people laugh. They're like, you're on LinkedIn all the time. And I'm like, it's like this amazing feed of VC deals, of new companies coming in AI and blockchain, you know, in carbon accounting. Yeah. So I love this space because although I'm not in corporate development at Willow, I do have a hand in it. So we'll say, wow, like this company is doing digital twins, but like they're doing it slightly differently. Like, can we work together? So there's collaboration and there's ways to say, okay, real estate company XYZ, you've always done it this way, nothing wrong with it, but if you consider doing it that way, and you'll see certain people in a meeting think, this is scary, I don't really like being threatened, but like I'm open to hearing it. And then over time, you'll see them actually start to adopt digitization. So for me, I like being in this place, seeing things change kind of around you. It's like Ferris Bueller, right? The world moves pretty fast. So it's great. I think it's energizing. CBRE, of course, speaking of the green monster, they are on the cutting edge of tech. I mean, you know, JLL, Spark, CB, all these big firms, they're nimble, they're big, and they're making big changes, which have great impacts on our world. So I don't know if I answered that question, but I think it's cool to see things moving fast, to be a part of it, and to kind of change minds as you're doing it.
Yeah, well, I think it's so important for everyone to be, because like we said at the beginning, everyone's come from, whether it's say VC, banking, investment, and real estate. There's no set career pathway to getting into this space. So for everyone hearing about what we know, what's exciting, why would you look at it? That's perfect. Right. Maybe then down to you. You got the final call. Sort of why, what do you love most about sort of working in this role, whether it's sort of being like a founder and yeah.
So I think the most rewarding part is growing myself and also growing the team together. I'm with our customers and make sure that our vision align with long-term goals, and also get to really learn about their industry and where it's heading and how we position ourselves. As Allison mentioned, it's definitely a sector like construction tech and PropTech getting more and more crowded. Good that, you know, we get more resource from the investor sides, but also how to position yourself to stand out, right? You know, their unique go-to-market strategy, either find a niche and integrate with everybody else, or maybe find a particular, you know, subsector within the real estate and become a all-stop shop. And there's a lot of different ways that we need to we have to basically explore and make a strategic decision. And so it's like ongoing process, and intellectually it's very challenging, and yeah, like that's what I like most. There's no day is the same, and we find opportunities and really need to just be focused and come up with the best, most efficient go-to-market strategy to execute those.
Yeah, I agree, especially the part with no days same. Grace, sorry, I missed you out there, especially as someone who's obviously you part of a business which has been going from sort of strength to strength, and there's so many selling points of OpenSpace, but for you particularly, and obviously you've gone through obviously big change in your family as well. What's most exciting for you about whether it's the contact world and the scale up well for you?
Yeah, you know, the digital transformation is really occurring at an unprecedented rate. And I think everyone knows that COVID only accelerates, you know, the technology adoption. For our space, I see the demand for reality capture has changed, right? So previously, and this has changed that because a lot of our customers are using our product as their daily standard operation, which is not the case before. And they are trying to use it to understand better of their project, and the better they understand their project, the more they can reduce risk and uncertainty, right? And I think that's another reason I feel like we all need to kind of embrace changes and adapt to changes, because sometimes I feel like even myself stay in the comfort zone for too long, and I don't feel like I need to change. But the fact is that my customers are changing and the macro environment are changing, and they are constantly looking for new technologies, better solutions, and better services. So if I feel like we don't change that, we will kind of cannot catch up with the customers or the world.
Yeah, absolutely. Or there'll be a bloody another competitor out there who will catch up and keep on evolving. Well, I like to finish off this panel with obviously saying a big thank you to all the panelists for joining us, being very flexible with their time as well. Obviously, Paul, thank you again for organising this. I speak on behalf of everyone. I think we're more than happy for anyone to reach out if you're obviously looking at joining the space, any questions about initiatives that might work, anything. We're all pretty open here on the panel. But thank you very much, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the Asia PropTech Beyond 2022 Summit. And yeah, that's all from us. So thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much.
Nice to meet all of you too.
Yes, same here.